ever imagined what would have happened if Isagi had a completely different ability? How would this impact his journey inside of Blue Lock? And most importantly, is there an ability that would make him even stronger than his Metavision? In this video, I've got 5 different special abilities I'll be giving Isagi. And we are starting off with one of the most broken abilities yet, Bachira's Dribbling Monster. Now, from the very start, not much changes. Kira still gets eliminated, only this time it's Isagi himself who starts to play with his monster dribble and not Bachira. Now, in the first selection, Team Z changes completely. Instead of arguing about rotations and trying to let everyone shine, the team would naturally revolve around Isagi and Bachira, 2 monsters who can take on any player on one-on-one. In this scenario, instead of struggling, they go on to defeat Nico's team, Bato's team, and have no problem against Nagi's and Ryo's team, as Isagi's team would now finish the first selection completely undefeated. So at this point, Isagi actually looks way stronger than in the original storyline. But once we reach the second selection, that's when the cracks start to show. Against Rin, things get rough. Without Metavision or adaptability, Isagi can't read the entire field like before. But at the same time, with his monster dribble, he can actually challenge Rin in one-on-one situations. In fact, he'd probably even score a goal and make the match way closer than it originally was. This time, the top 3 are impressed not with Bachira, but with Isagi himself. So, in this version, Bachira and Isagi would switch places, with Bachira going back down with Nagi and Isagi joining Rin's squad way early in the storyline. Now that changes the entire timeline, because moving into the third selection, this becomes obvious. In the original story, this is where Isagi started developing Metavision. But now, that never happens. Instead, he relies entirely on his dribbling to stand out amongst the top 6. Now sure, he would still shine and score his goal, which would lead him to get selected for the U20 match. But once that match arrives, the tide shifts. Against guys like Aiku and especially Sai, dribbling isn't enough. With his different ability, Sai would no longer see him as a genius, but just like another Bachira-type player. And while Isagi would still be a key player, the real star of the match would become Rin. Which means, without his Metavision and not knowing the meaning of luck, Isagi would never score the winning goal. The game between Blue Lock and Japan would now end in a draw, leading us to the events in the Neo Iguis League. And this is where it all falls apart. Without Metavision, Isagi can't keep up with Kaiser. The rivalry, it wouldn't even feel like one. Kaiser would win their matchup every single time. Because of that, Bastard Munchen would not only be weaker and way easier to shut down, but with no Isagi stealing the spotlight, Rin and PXG would dominate the entire league. So, by the time we get to the U20 World Cup, everything has changed. Isagi is no longer the centerpiece of the Japan team. That spotlight goes to Rin, and at this point, he's just another weapon on the field, not the Blue Lock hero. So, in the end, giving Isagi the monster dribble makes him look way scarier at first, but later on, he just becomes a better version of Bachira. Not the greatest outcome for Isagi, but what if instead of the dribbling monster, he had Aiku's defensive Metavision? Now that's a whole different story. You might think that this is just like Isagi's Metavision after all, but here's where you're wrong. You see, Aiku's version works completely differently, where Isagi uses his vision to create plays and move his teammates like chess pieces. Aiku uses his to calculate the odds of every duel, analyzing positioning and every ability of an opponent player. So what if Isagi had that instead of his original Metavision? Well, early on, nothing really changes. Isagi still clears the first selection, the second selection, and even the third selection all the same, with the first real change happening in the Neo Iguis League. In the match against Manchine City, instead of reading defenses and manipulating the flow of the game, Isagi would now focus on one-on-one battles. Having truly unlocked his new Metavision, he'd use that information to constantly win every duel on offense as well as defense, making him a true box-to-box weapon capable of winning every challenge before they even happen, almost feeling like he's always one step ahead. But here's the problem. Since his physical traits like speed, dribbling, and strength are an elite, he would struggle massively against players like Kaiser or Rin. You see, his new Metavision simply isn't as powerful as the original. and because of that, Kaiser would outplay him time and time again, taking control of the Bastard Munchen squad. But despite all of that, individually, Isagi would look way scarier than before. Now, without Isagi's ability to control the field and coordinate the team, Bastard Munchen as a whole would suffer. The entire team would be weaker top to bottom, and in the end, Rin and PXG would once again win the final match. By the time we reached the U20 World Cup, Isagi would have fallen to number 2, just behind his rival Itoshi Rin. You see, despite being a way scarier player on an individual level, his overall impact on Blue Lock would drop dramatically. And so, it still wouldn't be enough to make him the number 1 striker in the world. But what if he needed something more aggressive? What if instead of Aiku's Metavision, Isagi possessed Baru's Predator Eye? Now, if you guys don't know, Predator Eye is the complete opposite of Metavision, where one expands your vision, the other narrows your attention to the tiniest detail, spotting weaknesses and instantly calculate the best way to score, just like a predator hunting its prey. And if Isagi had that instead of Metavision, he would change drastically. Well, let's see. Up until the U20 match, nothing would really change. It's only when we get to the Neo Egoist League that things start to shift. You see, in the original story, Baru only unlocked Predator Eye during his match against Isagi, which means, in this version, Isagi would awaken that exact same ability during Bastard Munchen vs Italy Ubers. But since he only unlocks his ability in the 3rd match of the Neo Egoist League, this means the events prior to that would take a massive turn. Because without Metavision, Isagi would no longer have the awareness or control to save his team against Manchine City, and that could mean Nagi and Ryo might actually steal the win. However, despite losing Metavision, Isagi would still have his adaptability. Now, it wouldn't be nearly as strong as before, but it would still be enough to scrape out a victory over Nagi's team. But once the Ubers match begins, that's where everything changes. With Predator Eye unlocked, Isagi would dominate the field, but in a completely different way. Instead of controlling players like chess pieces and dictating the flow of the game, he would transform into a pure striker, someone whose shooting ability would skyrocket, since he's now able to read the opponent's weakest points right before they happen, and so becoming a far bigger threat inside the box. In the rest of the league, Isagi and Kaiser would dominate any team. But here's the twist. By the time we reach the U20 World Cup, Isagi would no longer be the mastermind leading Japan. And so, Nigeria would no longer fear Isagi the same way. Instead, they would treat him just like another striker. With that being said, Rin and Isagi's duo would be more than enough to deal with Nigeria. But once we reach the likes of France and Spain, well, let's just say that his Metavision and adaptability would have come handy. So, despite being just as powerful, Isagi with Predator Eye would still not have surpassed his previous version. But what if Isagi could do anything? What if he had every ability in Blue Lock? Well, that's exactly what would happen if he had Ryo's copy ability, a skill that lets him copy any technique on the field. This would transform Isagi into an unstoppable monster, pairing his incredible IQ and adaptability with an ability that can copy Baru's Predator Eye or Rin's Trivela shot would create the most complete striker in the entire universe. He'd first manifest this ability during the 3rd selection, just like Ryo did in the original storyline. But this time, he'd be replicating Shiro's heel kick. This would impress Ego and the players so much that Isagi would become the heart of the Blue Lock team, side by side with Itoshi Rin. And by the time we get to that match, things would change again. Instead of struggling against Itoshi Sai and only scoring at the last moment, Isagi would take immediate control of the match, using copy after copy on techniques like Nagi's trap goal as well as Sai's dribble. He would dominate Japan's defense and make the game so much easier for Blue Lock that the match would finish with a 4-2 victory. Now this would not only impress the owners of the biggest clubs in the world, but also the players such as Itoshi Sai, which would now consider Isagi at his own level. Which would bring us to the event of the Neo Egoist League, where the new Isagi would reach different levels entirely under the German team. This time, despite Kaiser trying to make life harder for Isagi, it would indeed have the opposite effect. You see, with copy, not even Kaiser is safe. After witnessing the Kaiser impact against Barca, Isagi would instantly analyze and copy it, adding the fastest kick in the entire verse to his own arsenal. Oh yeah, that's the most important part of this all, because after using these techniques for the very first time, they don't just magically disappear. Instead, once Isagi copies a technique, it's his forever. It just becomes part of his game. With a monster like this, nobody in the Neo Igus League would stand a chance. And so, not only would he dominate every team, but also lead his biggest rivals to desperation. After we arrive at the U20 World Cup, Japan's reputation would be completely different. Thanks to Isagi impressing the best clubs in the world like Real and Bayern München, Japan would be considered one of the favorites to win it all, matching even teams like France, Germany, and Spain. They would go on to destroy Nigeria in the opening match. And honestly, I doubt anyone in the tournament could stop the copy demon. Well, I guess we can finally say that this version of Isagi would definitely surpass his previous one. But would it be the best one? I mean, we've got one last ability left, and this might be a game changer. It's time to give Isagi Rin's destructive flow state. Just like Rin, Isagi would only unlock this ability during the U20 match. And at first, it would not look all that special. After all, he doesn't have Rin's speed, strength, or natural talent. But the way Isagi would use his flow, it would be completely different. Instead of relying just on his raw physical traits, he would use his IQ and adaptability as the main foundation of the flow, and that alone would change everything. The moment he enters this state, every part of his game would skyrocket to the absolute limit. His reactions, speed, and strength, all of it would be pushed to the top. And even without metavision, this flow would allow him to destroy his enemies with their own weapons, just like Rin did during the U20 match. And this is where things get scary, because once he's in flow, Isagi stops thinking altogether. His body would just move completely on instinct, doing exactly what he needs to do before his opponents even realize it. Almost like an Ultra Instinct version of Isagi. Defenders would have zero time to react. After dealing with Sai and the Japan U20 team, this new Isagi would get ready to destroy the entire Neo Igus League. I mean, Kaiser wouldn't even stand a chance. Isagi would crush him on all of his mental games. But the best part is yet to come, because in the final of the Neo Igus League, we would have Destroyer versus Destroyer, the top rivals in Blue Lock facing each other once again. And this time, Rin wouldn't stand a chance. Despite not having his metavision anymore, Isagi's adaptability and IQ, paired up with his entirely new flow state, would finally let him defeat Rin on one-on-one, which would then lead us to the final arc of this version, the U20 World Cup. By the time we reach these events, Japan would no longer just be the team to watch. They'd be led by two demons in the striker position. Both Isagi and Rin, with their destructive flow states, would make Japan one of the scariest teams in the entire tournament. And well, if even one of them activates flow during a match, let's just say it's pretty much over for that opponent. And who knows, this destructive duo paired up with the genius Itoshi Sai might actually have a shot at winning it all. There you have it. Now you guys let me know which ability fits Isagi the best. And for your next video, here's one where I created the ultimate anime tournament. Go on!